Welcome to the Hot Lava Podcast. Kevin Acee, Padres beat writer for the Union-Tribune. Ryan Finley, sports editor of the Union-Tribune. Padres, Royals, 3 games. The Padres have arrived at the portion of their schedule they were kind of looking forward to. Maybe some teams that weren't so good, but they've arrived there as a team that's not so good. I still buy into it. Got 3 against the Royals. You play 3 against the Red Sox, 3 against the Nationals, 3 against the Yankees, 3 against the Marlins. That's 9 games of 15 that you play teams with losing records. I still think it is significant. I think this is a huge part of the early season schedule. I do. But we got to address the fact that the Padres stink right now. Ryan, where do you want to start?
I think we start with the Padres getting swept by the Dodgers. And we've been saying for weeks, Kevin, when there have been some issues, hey, it's a long season. Hey, these guys will even out. And while I still think that there's a belief, certainly within that clubhouse, that they're going to be who they are, who they have been in the past. When you see it game after game and week after week against a team in the Dodgers that is the measuring stick in the division, I think it's cause for major concern. What is the biggest issue to you at this point?
I'm still going to say it's that the guys that are making the big bucks aren't hitting. Yes. Yes, their catchers aren't hitting. Yes, their DHs might be, to a point where you're not going to get much out of them on a regular basis. Yes, Jake Cronenworth is, I think, 1 for his last 20. There are 4 guys at the top of the lineup, and 2 of them lately are doing their job. Mm-hmm. One of them was suspended for the first 20 games. One of them didn't hit for the first 25, 24. Mm-hmm. Manny Machado who's being paid the most of all. And I don't like to make this about money, but there's a reason you get money. And there's a reason that you're here as the highest paid guy. And then Xander Bogaerts, who's making $25 million a year, is 3 for his last 22 or something like that. Mm-hmm. There's all sorts of things, and we want to look for all these issues. And I see that our producer, John Kelly, who is a Padres fan, has Bob Melvin as the picture of the week. And I assume that there's maybe a reason behind that. I'm certainly hearing from a lot of fans about Bob Melvin. I know that when you play the Dodgers, you want to talk about chemistry or the it factor or the information that the team gets and all that. I feel like, well, some of that is maybe valid, right? And these are avenues to explore. How about the big guys do their job?
Mm-hmm. Starting with Manny Machado. And Kevin, I thought Manny had some really interesting things to say after yesterday's game. It was not, that's baseball. It was not there's another game tomorrow. I thought that he was insightful. As he reached a point, is he feeling this heat a little bit now too?
Sure. He changed into tight pants. I mean, what makes a man do that except feeling the heat? Right. Yes, for sure. And these guys are human, and you're prone to maybe not doing your job the best that you can for a while. He has had worse stretches. Now, one of them, all of the ones except for that happened in 2019 happened in the first couple years of his career. He had some injuries. He was young. He was 21 in his 2014 season. 2019, he acknowledged, it had been a tough offseason with the free agency and all that. So this is concerning what's happening right now, but it's not the worst stretch of his career. Right. And I still buy into the whole back of the baseball card and that it'll even out. I also know the Padres will not hit 198 with runners in scoring position for the entire year. And things will get better, but that doesn't mean they're not bad now. It doesn't mean there's not cause for concern. And that, heck, every hole in their whole lineup that we kind of knew, might be there has been exposed. But again, there's a reason they assembled the talent that they did, and that's so that the holes, right? If you're going to have that much, right? Unless you're the Dodgers, who somehow find, guys all the time to come through with big hits. Though I will point out that Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Will Smith are doing their jobs. You're going to have holes. You mask over those holes with $100 million top of your lineup. And that part of the lineup is not doing the job.
But they're also not going to pitch this well all year. That's the thing that drives, we talk about, okay, the hitting's going to come. if you are what the back of your baseball card says you are, they have how many playoff caliber starting pitchers right now? 2.5?
Okay, but they better worry about getting through the season before the playoffs. But I got you. Yes, I understand what you're saying about the rotation.
Right. If you're scoring 3 runs a night, that's a lot of pressure on your pitchers.
It sure is.
And you cannot expect these guys to give up 3-4 runs a night all year long, or else you're going to burn somebody out.
And it goes for relievers as well. And I don't know that that is given enough credence. Now, look, some guys need to do their job. There's some guys that maybe shouldn't be in that bullpen. Robert Suarez isn't here. Adrian Morejon is not here. I don't know that I want to include Drew Pomeranz because I don't know that the Padres included him in their plans because you can't count on it, but it certainly would help if he were here. But Robert Suarez is a big one because just one key piece that you were counting on being gone means other guys have to move into certain roles. And not only are they moving into certain roles like a Steven Wilson, a Brent Honeywell, you're moving into it, and every single night having to pitch tied +1, -1. It's a medium to high leverage situation, and that is more difficult than say a 4 or 5 run lead. It just is, and then it builds on itself, and it becomes even more difficult, and you start to get tired.
I mean, this is what happened in Kevin. This is what happened in 2021. They didn't get enough starting. I mean, there's been more than enough starting pitching this year, but they didn't get enough starting pitching. They put the bullpen in high pressure situations almost all year long, and it fell apart at the end because you can only put a bullpen through too much. Am I oversimplifying that or not?
Yes, but that's okay. I mean, there are no, there are no perfect comparisons from year to year, but it's at least, it's at least something to give us to wrap our heads around kind of why this is a danger zone.
Sure.
Absolutely. I don't know that this is like, I've been playing around with the phrases in my head. Is this a crisis? Is it a crisis point? Is it, what is it? Because I still do think that there's a long way to go and that these guys will be better. And I again point out that there are 6 playoff spots and that I don't know that there's more than 8 teams that are, and I think generous. I don't know that there's really, that many teams to challenge. I think the Padres will be fine, and then we can start worrying about what they do in the postseason. How about when they get to 10 or 11 games over 500? Then we can start worrying about that. The idea that chemistry, okay, maybe there's some reality to that. The idea that they, I don't know, that they just they don't know, the Padres haven't like established something that they can kind of fall back on, or that there's a way they do things. Well, when you're firing and hiring coaches all the time, when you're bringing in new players, like why, in what world was that not something we were all aware of before this season? That's why I go back to the top 4 getting their job done. I mean, for the love of God, it's unbelievable how bad that they have been. It doesn't mean that they will be. Both can be true. I still preach patience. It doesn't mean that they have not stunk, and they have to do better. It's like they do. That doesn't mean under these other things we can't concentrate. But I see, for instance, a lot of concentration on Ha-Seong Kim. The guy's hitting 300 in May.
Right.
Okay. I don't know what his average is for the season. 240. That's who he is. Like, and that's okay. If some other people are getting their jobs done.
Right. No, that's a great point. And you look at complete lack of production from a couple of positions. I mean, I would say catcher, at least offensively, has been awful.
It's a problem. Go find a catcher. Yeah.
Well, okay, but you just said that, and you had a note in your newsletter last week a little bit about that concept. Luis Campusano's hurt and is out 8 weeks at minimum. Basically, he cannot be counted on to contribute to this team indefinitely, right?
Yep.
Okay. Backup catcher is Brett Sullivan, who made his big league debut. He's been a great story. He's regressed a little bit offensively here in the last week or so. Are they at a point? I mean, would you be surprised if you saw a new name in that clubhouse in the next week or two? Is it too early in the season to be talking about personnel changes like that?
No.
To talk about trades? What do you think?
It's not too early to do that. Not at that position. Not with what's happening now. I mean, as if everyone couldn't see it with their eyes. I mean, we've reached a point where Bob Melvin's going with matchups now late in games. I mean, Brett Sullivan started 6 of the last 12 games. There was not a point in the season where there was an even sharing of time by Austin Nola and anyone else. So yeah, and it is a suckage, a black hole in the lineup if you don't have Austin Nola like in a bunt situation, and I don't think they see it trending up very much. So again, like, are they getting by with that if other people are hitting? Sure, but okay, fine, I've covered that. Yeah, they need to address that situation right there.
Right. And it's not, again, I think that we need to remind our listeners every once in a while, the goal with this team is no longer to make the playoffs. The goal with this team is no longer to be 500. This is they have championship caliber expectations. Peter Seidler posed the question, will the championship parade be held on the water or on land? And I know that it was a witty retort to questions about the way they're spending money. Simply being good enough to make the playoffs isn't necessarily the goal with this team. At least that's not what they told you. That's not what they've told us. Where do they turn that catcher? I mean, if this is if this is trending downward, and the one guy who could help you internally is out for the next 8 weeks, where do they turn?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of options. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is Yasmani Grandal. We'll see how it unfolds. I mean, there's not. Right. And it stinks at that position that you would have to bring someone in the middle of the season. It really does, which is another reason I go to, some guys need to get their jobs done. But it really does stink that you have to go to that spot. It also is not going to save your season. It might get you some more hits there. Maybe it gets you some RBIs there. But it's also not going to save your season. I just want to make that clear. Like what's going to save your season is Manny Machado having an 850 plus OPS for the rest of the year, because he's at 650 or something right now. So that's what's going to save your season. Xander Bogaerts hitting better is going to save your season. Juan Soto doing more of what he's done the last 2 weeks is what's going to save your season. Fernando Tatis Jr., maybe a little more slug, but basically doing what he's been doing is what's going to save your season. But that is an issue that needs to be addressed. Reliever may be an issue that needs to be addressed, depending. Robert Suarez hasn't started throwing yet, so it's not like Robert Suarez isn't walking through that door. Not right now, at least. But they should be able to get by again if some people hit.
Well, and that's the thing, right? It's the expectation is not that Austin Nola hit 300. The expectation is that they thought that if he did what he had done during his career up until this point, that they would be just fine. Not to belabor the catcher point, Austin Nola was killing the ball in spring training. He was having, I know that we take, that much grain of salt, what you do in spring training. How much do you think getting hit in the face and the recovery or the attempt to return from that has affected him, or has anybody indicated anything about that?
Yes, and that it's not the case, but that's not to say that it's not, or that there wasn't something to that, but more. And we've talked about it. I think there's been a regression by Austin Nola. Like he's a 30, is it 31, 32? I don't know. He's a catcher who maybe had a certain ceiling and maybe reached it. And, it's a position that takes a lot out of you, and to try to fix yourself at the plate while getting beat down behind the plate. Again, there's a reason there's not a lot of good hitting catchers. And so, no, it's more that people just what they're seeing in him in terms of how he moves.
Gotcha.
That's smarter people than me, in terms of baseball, and you can notice things. They don't like what they're seeing from him. That's outside the organization as well as inside it. And I think that we can all kind of just look at the numbers and see it too.
Sure. I know that we're not in the speculation game. What would it take to get somebody like a Grandal?
I don't know. He's going to be a free agent.
Right.
And so not a whole lot, you would think, but the White Sox would have to be looking for a little help. Maybe the Padres can send him a 16-year-old shortstop that no one's ever heard of. I don't know.
Don't send the 16-year-old catcher.
The
Don't send him.
Padres have more in their system than people think, just because they're ranked whatever it is, 20-something. They have more in terms of, not like, say, Dodgers or some other teams, like players are going to come up and help them, like a bunch of them. That's probably not the case. But in terms of 19, 20-year-olds that you can pry a player from a veteran player from another team, they have those players if that's what they're going to decide to do. And at this point, you're so far in, that's what you got to decide to do.
Yeah.
At this point, it should be another. It's not a Juan Soto. You're not going to get a grab like that. But starting pitcher, reliever, catcher, at this point, you have to, because that's what you've done to yourself. I mean,
Right.
You're all in. Whether you like that phrase or not, you're all in. So that means keep pushing until you can't borrow anymore. And in this case, it's borrowing from your future, because Juan Soto, has a season and a half left here, probably. You're not guaranteed to get Shohei Ohtani. Time is ticking on some other guys in their 30s. You are all in for now. So it's, I will expect that AJ Preller will be active, at least in pursuing. And generally, when he pursues and puts his mind to it, finds a way to add to the team.
A week ago, we were talking about Bob Melvin ticked at the end of the Twins series. Short with you guys, had told the team, no uncertain terms, it's time to, basically stop talking about it and be about it. What buttons are left to push if this continues? I mean, and again, it probably won't continue. They're playing the Royals and the Red Sox this week. But if this continues, what buttons does he have left to push?
The Red Sox are in last place, I think, but have a winning record in the AL East.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't think, again, what do you got? Brad Keller and Brady Singer coming up for the Royals. Yes, they get paid, but as I said to Manny Machado last week, but they don't. He said they got to eat too. I said, well, right, that's true. I know, and he knows that I respect how hard it is to hit in this league. I said, but they don't get as much to eat as most of the guys in this lineup. That's just like, yeah, they get paid. And I am willing to say, you face Clayton Kershaw, who, by the way, you beat, but you face Luis Urias, you face Dustin May, you're facing some good pitchers. 100%, man. You can have a bad night or not get the big hit, right, with against the Dodgers bullpen. But I'm sorry, you got to take 2 or 3 from the Twins. And you, at this point, I mean, I'll never say you got to sweep a team, but you got to, really do well against the Royals. Okay. The Royals, by the way, are better in most offensive categories than the Padres, but one place that they stink is pitching. So that they should do that. Your question, what more buttons were there in a push? I think we also talked about that, man, Bob Melvin must have really felt it was important to do then because the Dodgers were coming up and he knew who was starting for the Dodgers. So there was a chance that, if a manager can pick his time, he does it before the Royals series. All right. But he felt it was important to do it for the Dodgers series. What buttons are left to push? What is he going to do? Bench Manny Machado? Bench Juan Soto? What buttons are there to push? Turn over a table this time? I
mean, you can move guys down in the order. You can send guys down. I mean, I know that doesn't really matter, but there are some things there.
He's tried some things. I don't know that you do that again. Okay, could it reach a point where they got to play some more small ball? I guess it could, right? They tried that a few times. It even worked one time. But, are you really sending up Juan Soto to bunt? Is that where we're at? I'm not sure. Again, you made this team, right? Mm-hmm. You don't suddenly in the middle of the season make it a different team. Especially, it's not like you made this team and it's like, oh, these are some expendable parts. You made this team with really important parts made of gold. Right. Okay. And they just got a hitter. They need to out best. They need to
Ooh.
be better than other teams, right? Like whatever other teams have, the Padres have the ability offensively to be better, and that's what they need to do. Because like I just don't see changing the way that they play. That doesn't mean every once in a while. Look, I get why Fernando Tatis Jr. didn't steal the other night, and why when I'm talking about in the 8th inning, Manny Machado is up. Tatis is on first. You've got Grisham is, I think. Anyway, you had a man on second, or no, you had a man on third. Sorry. And you have a ground ball or a double play machine to some extent in Manny Machado lately up to bat, but also an RBI machine and a drive the ball to the gap machine. And you have Fernando Tatis on first base. A ball to the gap, Fernando Tatis Jr., being who he is, can walk home. Okay, he's going to score. He can't score from the dugout. So I get why you don't steal there to take away the double play. I get it. I get the argument to steal too. My point is there are some things maybe that can be done to create some more things. But you know what? There were times in the season they ran themselves out of innings. Okay? So like it's not like Bob Melvin's not trying to do some things. He is. Also, Bob Melvin has been a huge topic, right? I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Ryan, but
again, if you are what the back of your baseball card says you are, and that is today's theme, I think. I don't believe Bob. I believe Bob Melvin's not the problem. I think that he should probably get more grace than a bad month and a half, because he has been who he's been his entire career. He's done more with less. He's done more with more. I don't think he's the problem. I think the manager is where fans look, and the coaches are where fans look first. And because they're fans of players, they're not fans of managers, right? I think that your average Padre fan is probably harder on manager than on the guy whose jersey they own. And, it's players play. I don't think Bob Melvin's the problem. But I don't get emails from people telling me that he's the problem either, Kevin. What are fans saying to you?
Well, that he can't motivate them. And I think that's just the easy thing to say. Now, clearly the evidence there, like in just wins and losses and batting average. Okay, I guess I really can't argue with you. I mean, I don't have any evidence to show you really that he the results, right? Bob Melvin himself said it's a results-oriented business. Bob Melvin pulled the right strings last year, navigated them through quite a bit of drama, as a matter of fact, to get to the playoffs and get to the National League Championship Series. It wasn't a 60-game season, right? I'm seeing him compared to Jace Tingler. It wasn't a 60-game season. The Padres weren't making the playoffs in a 162-game season in 2020, right? Like Dinelson Lamet wasn't going to continue pitching. That was a fluke. We really shouldn't even count it. So at least in our brain when we're thinking about it.
I'm happy to not count it if we're not counting the Dodgers World Series.
Well, I don't want to get into that, but the Dodgers, I agree. I mean, to a certain extent, but the Dodgers won the World Series that was in front of them, right? Sure. Like they did, and I do think they were probably going to the playoffs that year, if it was 162 games. But yeah. But the point being that it wasn't that long ago that Bob Melvin helped them through a season without Fernando Tatis Jr. and kind of a lot of the same egos and situations in the clubhouse and a team that wasn't really as talented as this one, and some issues with injuries and stuff, and got them into the playoffs and into the National League Championship Series. And now I just don't know. I just think maybe the players, and I'm not even saying we're at this point, but maybe the guy who put the players together too. Like, I'm not saying that we're at that point. I don't think we're at any point right now. Right. It is 41 games into the season.
It's May. It's early May.
But we're at the point we can talk about it because it's really bad. But is it? I mean, Bob. There's a whole bunch of. By the way, Bob Melvin didn't hire most of his own coaches. So, AJ Preller does that. So, like, there's a lot. If this thing continues to go south, I don't know that Bob Melvin survives, but there's a lot of people who probably shouldn't survive if this thing goes south. That's another reason that, be it the media, be it fans, look at the manager and the coaches and the other expendable people, because the players aren't going anywhere.
Right.
At least the ones that are making a certain amount of money. So, it's another thing to consider here. This needs to go right now because a lot of these guys are going to be here for a long time. So there is an exit strategy. There's some tradable guys, but that's not what you want to be thinking about now. And I want to stress that I don't think we're at any point now, except the point of kind of talking about it because it's fun. Maybe not really fun, but
it's an interesting exercise. Yeah.
Right. And also we got to be prepared. I mean, there's no guarantee this thing turns around. But I do think that it will. I think it's preposterous how bad it is and how it's gone. And that's part of my thinking is that it'll get better.
Yeah. An easy way to get right, Kevin, is to play a team like the Royals. Based on what homework you've done and what you've seen, what can fans expect out of Kansas City?
Again, not much. I mean, look, this should be the kind of team that the Padres hitters get well against. It just should. This is the Royals are what the Padres were at one point. You come in and maybe even you're feeling good. You're the Royals. You're like, hey, this is going good. And you just play a flat out better team. And there's really not much you can do about it. That's just the way it is. And then the sombreros going and the piñata and all that stuff. And they start to feel good. And one thing they haven't done is put together more than a couple games. And it's been rare that it's even been a couple of real, what they expected to be. So 3 or 4 of those, and it probably is off to the races like it was last year. So early on and then late. So at no point this season have they played, well, I should say that, except over this, at no point in a larger than a week have they played as poorly as they did for 3 months last year.
Right.
They also last year never lost 7 of 8 as they have now.
Right.
Is that what it is? Lost track.
Yeah.
It's 7 of 8. But in terms of a longer period, say 15 games, 20 games, 30 games, they were not, like this.
Right.
And is that troubling? Sure, absolutely. And there are trends. Teams that do go deep in the playoffs generally, right themselves after a couple weeks. Now, the Padres did, if you'll remember. There was a 2-week period where they had one of the better records in the league. So I'm not saying they haven't righted themselves, but they need to pull out of this one. The other thing, like Manny Machado talks about it all the time, the elite players know how to not let a 1 for 8 become a 1 for 20. Well, a couple of the elite players have allowed them to become 1 for 20s. So, there's some troubling signs for sure. That's not in any way my pushback. I've made it clear in writing several times, and I'm making it clear here. It's awful, and there are troubling signs. I guess one of my things is I like perspective, and a failure, this team failing to make the playoffs would be historic. It would be like an epic failure. It's one of the reasons I don't like that we throw out these words like greatest or epic or you're the king or whatever, is it then diminishes the times when it really is that. And this would be monumental failure by the Padres. And I just don't think that we're close to even saying that now. I don't. Think back to 2021 at this time. Absolutely convinced every single person watching the Padres that they were going to be a playoff team and challenging the Dodgers. It swept the Dodgers in June, by the way. Took 7 of the first 10 games against them. That's, again, it's May 15th.
Right. And that's what
you're bad, but it's May 15th.
One of the things I love about co-hosting this podcast with you, Kevin, after being a listener for years, is I think a platform like a podcast can provide some nuance and some background that doesn't fit in the newspaper, sometimes doesn't even fit in your newsletter, even though your newsletters are prolific. And so I love being able to talk about something like this, like we were just able to do. I think it's kind of a good reset heading into what should be a pretty interesting week, if nothing else, the games against the Royals and Red Sox. We're at the 30-minute mark, man, so we got to roll. I will let you get down to the ballpark, and then we will huddle up later in the week to talk about Xander Bogaerts taking on his former team, the Boston Red Sox. That'll do it for this episode of the Hot Lava Podcast. For Kevin Acee, I'm Ryan Finley. We'll see you next time.